But the thing is, no, Hashem doesn't judge you. You know who judges you? Yourself. That's how it is. They put, no, not the shame. What they do, the neshama, they show the neshama a sin, and they tell the neshama, okay, you judge it. And the neshama says, oh, I think it should get this and this and this. Or they like this and like that. And then they tell the neshama, that is you. So they let you judge your own judgment. That's why we learn to constantly to give every person ladun lekav zchut, because you get used to constantly ladun people to kav zchut. So eventually you're going to judge yourself to kav zchut. And then you say, oh no, this poor person, look at the yetzer hara he had, give him a break. And then they're telling him, okay, that's you. So mainly the judgment is you, but there are judges that I wasn't able to see. I don't know who they were. David and Jonathan? Yeah, exactly. Yes.
You were talking about a vessel earlier. Is there anything a person that could do that they break down the vessel?
Yeah. When a person does an avera, he makes a crack. Take now a cup and quench it, you break it. Yeah. The thing is that any time that you do good, a mitzvah, or you refrain from an avera, you build the vessel. If chas v'shalom, a person did an avera, yeah, he broke some of the vessel. It's a problem. It's a big thing. A lot of people say, oh, I have a lot of mitzvot, I'll be fine. You're not going to be fine. Because if you damage your vessel, you know, this is where it comes a little bit more complex. The vessel is one thing, the levushim of the nefesh is a different thing, but the broad answer is yes, a person can damage his vessel. A person can live his life 10, 20 years religious and then go off the derech and be completely kofir. And, even though the mitzvah remains with you forever, but le'etata, the mitzvah actually, the schar of the mitzvah is taken away from that person. When a person does a sin, and at that particular second he's judged in Shamayim, he's called Rasha, at this point everything that he has is taken away, till he does tshuva. So a person with his wrong actions ruins the vessel in this world. Yeah. Yes? Wait, hold on.
Do you still see your future?
Huh?
Do you still see your future?
If I see my future?
Do you still see your future?
What I saw, I remember a lot of the things and I saw it. A lot of it happened already. But I don't walk around and give nevuot. But when that night, when I went into the room and the rabbi and the whole party, that's the first night I saw my wife from across the room and I recognized her. And only half a year later, the rabbi did a shidduch between us and he tells me, I have a nice girl for you to meet. And he tells me, here it is. And I look at him like, okay, if you insist. But when she walked into the car, I looked at her and I was like, that's my wife. So, Baruch Hashem, every time we have a kid, I tell my wife, we have a girl, we have a boy. A lot of the things I remember, but the big things I don't remember. I don't remember the lottery numbers, and I don't remember who's going to win the Super Bowl, but I remember general things. Yes?
Okay, so do you live your life based on what you saw of your life in the future, or is it going based on how you saw it?
Neither. What I saw... Yeah, what I saw, first of all, I don't remember most of it. What I remember is very general things. I remember my wife, I remember all my kids, how they looked, I remember my wedding, I remember certain events in my life.
How many kids?
So far, Baruch Hashem, 5, but we're not done. A lot of the events in my life already happened, and a lot of the things happened, and when it happened, I was like, oh, I remember it. Kind of like a deja vu, but the real thing. But the real deja vu.
So what language did you communicate in?
All Lashon Kodesh. Just Hebrew.
Do you remember? Oh, like actual Hebrew, what we speak now?
No. The thing is that the communication...
In the army?
No. That it's Mamash Lashon Kodesh, but the thing is that this is where it's very difficult to explain, because there wasn't words, there wasn't a sound, there wasn't an ear to hear. It's kind of like a dream. Now in a dream there's no sounds. And in a dream, there's no voices. And in a dream, there's not really a word. You understand everything. It's called hasaga. You understand. And 1 second you hear, and 1 second you're there, and one time you hear, and you look at your father in the dream, it doesn't look like your father. Everything is a mishmash in the dream. This is like, how we say, Shir HaMalot B'Shuv Hashem et Shivat Zorin, Hayinu kecholmim. This world is the dream. And when I came back down to this world, it was like waking up to the dream. Like we think we're alive, this is like a dream, and how I felt there was magnified like the real thing. So there wasn't really words, it was in a level that I don't know how to explain it.
How you was mentally after all that?
How I was mentally, how I didn't lose it, Baruch Hashem. Hashem, you know, when Hashem puts you back in the goof.
Wow. And why it took you 4.5 years until to be religious?
2 years. 2 years, because when you're 28 years old and you live your life a certain way and suddenly you have to stop everything, that's not easy. You say, okay, I was like, I'll do this, but Pitom, now you're telling me every day, it's not an easy life. So, you know, when you're in the life,
So in the house, basically, there was nothing that you keep, like something.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Shem Erachem, not even one thing.
What about now? Your family is religious?
My parents, Baruch Hashem, ken. But when I grew up, the only thing that I did when I grew up was they taught me in school, which wasn't the real thing. So Chanukah for me was 8 days off school. Pesach was 3 weeks off school. Sukkot, 2 weeks vacation. That was, you know, and everything was taught in school in Israel. They tell you the story, but they take Hashem out of it. So I knew a lot of things. You live in Israel, you can't not know. I had friends in the army that were religious. It's not that I didn't know. I hated it. Hashem Erachem Bechavana on Yom Kippur, I used to do a barbecue to annoy my neighbors. I was like very hateful, like a lot of the Israelis. So whatever I knew, I decided and I chose. That was my problem. Because if you don't know anything, you know, the poskim of all generations says, Tinok shenishba, what do you want from him? He's a little boy. He's a baby. He was a baby that was captured ben agoyim. So how the Gemara calls it. That's if you don't know. What you don't know, you don't get judged. But if you know, you have a problem.
In that 2 years, did you get any message from Hashem? Like
Every day Hashem was holding my hand. At that 2 years, I was bemet like a prophet. Every day Hashem was holding my hands. These 2 years were miracle over miracle over miracle. I have stories from that time because I needed, you asked how I didn't become meshuga, because I had Hashem holding my hand. Telling me every day, you're normally. Tamshich, you're good. Yes.
Your parents were religious?
I can't hear you.
Your parents were religious that time?
When I became, no, my parents are not religious at all.
But when you were a child, they were
Nothing. Nothing.
And now,
Now, Baruch Hashem. But when I grew up, nothing. We didn't have nothing in the house, not kiddush, nothing. My mom didn't do candles, anything, not kosher. Pesach was a meal. It wasn't a little seder. It was a meal and presents and 2 weeks off school. Even whatever was religion wasn't religion. So I didn't have anything at home.
when you was there, you saw your parents crying. When you came down here, did you ask them if it's so kind of?
No.
Nothing?
There, the neshama this is something that our mind cannot understand, but the same way that Hashem sees forward and knows what's going to happen, it's like as if the neshama could, like as if they showed me what could have happened.
How do you believe your story?
Who?
Your parents.
How? How do thousands of people believe my story?
Thousands of people that had something.
Of course. The thing is how with my parents, it was very hard for me to tell my parents the story, because I knew my mom is going to... So for the first 2 years, nobody knew anything. Then I told them I became religious, and they were like, why are you religious? I'll tell you one time. So, and the beginning was very hard for them, because they thought I'm Meshuga. And it took for them a while to realize that I'm actually the same person.
So you moved here after the army.
Yeah. Now, only after like 4 or 5 years, when my brother-in-law died, then I told my parents. Then I told everybody, because then, I had to open the can of worms. Then everything came out. But it was very hard. Can you imagine me telling my mom, I took drugs, I overdosed in the back seat of a car, and it was nothing, But, I couldn't break my mother's heart. But even before that, they already started, my father started putting tefillin, my mother started lighting candles. Now, Baruch Hashem. But it's not easy to become religious kacha. Yes.
How long was it before that? I'm sorry.
10 minutes.
Do you remember?
Berech 10 minutes.
Do you remember like the first sefer you took down when you were like embarked on your journey of like becoming Jewish and religious?
What was the first book?
The first sefer you did like independently that you like started like was it like a small book? Like I'm sure you didn't just jump into like doing Zohar and everything. Like was it like
The first book was somebody gave me a kitzur Shulchan Aruch. But the kitzur, I started just reading all the halachot, all the little things.
And then, like, what was like the next step? Like you learned some halachot.
I started kind of in yeshiva right away. A whole seder, Gemara, Hasidut, this, Shulchan Aruch, everything.
So most of your learning didn't come from, like, did it come from independent learning, or was it just like
No.
being given to you? You know, like.
Because the first year and a half I didn't learn anything. Then when I came to New York, right away went to yeshiva. So right away, when my mind was already okay, I got to become religious. So I was ready. I like took off my not religious jacket and I just dived in. So right away I was already the kli to start everything. So I learned everything. I was like already thirsty. I had to catch up big time. So I just covered everything. Of course, with the time I started learning more. I started learning more Pnimiut Torah.
Different like sources coming from like everywhere. Basically.
Well, the thing is, when you start becoming religious and you want to do it the right way, and there's an order how you want to do it. You want to learn Mishnah before you will learn the Gemara, and then you want to learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, then you learn Shulchan Aruch, then you start learning the Tur, and you can't just come and okay, I want to be religious. Give me the hardest Gemara. You have to also learn the how to learn it. You have to learn the language. So, but the first and easiest is to take Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and to learn the basics, what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. Then when you already kind of master that, you're like, okay, now I know what I'm allowed to, what I'm not allowed to. Now let me learn where it comes from. Now let me learn the reason for that. Now let me להגדיל Torah ולהאדיר. But you can't like say, oh, I just like this. You need, the entire thing. Learning Torah is like nutrition. You can't just have water or just fruits or just vitamins. You need everything. You need minerals, vitamins, everything. So the Torah is exactly the same. Which one? The first one was Ora Torah in Monsey. Then I moved to Brooklyn. Then I started going through different yeshivot. Then I end up in yeshiva, what's called Hadara Torah in Brooklyn. And I actually, till today, I'm there because the Rosh Yeshiva is something out of this world. So I still learn there half a day. So the Geulah can come in two different ways. Either be'ito, at the time that it's scheduled to come, and we don't want that to happen because it means we're going to have to wait. Or v'achishena, which means that we work, we bring enough merits to Am Yisrael, and the Geulah comes faster. How and fast we can do it, it all depends on us. But there's many and enough sources that sew everything together that tells you it's mamash achshav. Not in the 70s in the Yom Kippur War, and not in the 80s in the Milchemet Shlom HaGalil, it's now. And there's so many things that point on exactly how it's going to be that you kind of have to be not normal in your mind to look at the world and say, oh, it's normal and it will get better. If you just judge the world in the last decade, you see the whole world is going to a place it can't be reversed even. You really have to be blind to look at the world and say, nah, Mashiach is not coming. Just how the world is revolving. So besides that, there's enough sources that actually pinpoint that the Geulah is very, very close. And how I saw it, it looked like literally every day. Huh? No, how it looked every day now, not then. Yeah. Then when I saw it 13 years ago, it looked like how now it's ototo. Not 13 years ago ototo. It's very close. Chas v'shalom, the way we are now, that we're like literally in the middle. All it needs is a few averot and we're back in a minus. A few mitzvot and we're like a ship rocking. That's why we need now every mitzvah, every Jew that comes back, it's just for our merit. And you can see even like if you literally read all the scriptures and you follow everything around, you gotta really be blinded to not see that the Geulah is b'petach. Yes. For the ones in the back that didn't hear, he was saying that there's a different guy in Eretz Israel. His name is Nir Abujan. He also had a near-death experience. He has a video online, and he says how he saw his burial and heard the hespedim, and they were all making lies. And if he could come back at that point to come down and kill them to shut them up, he would, because it's true when the neshama leaves the body and they I don't know the word in English, hespedim, they say, utilize. How? Eulogy. They say the eulogy and it's wrong, and the neshama suffers from that. So the answer is, yeah, if you have to do a espedim on somebody, you got to say the truth. And if there's nothing good to say, you don't say anything. Yeah? Better not to say anything. If you know the person was good in here, you say it. But nobody's perfect. And if you start telling on a person, oh, he was generous, and he was this, and he had a kind heart, don't say it, because you also can bring dinim on this neshama.
So it's not avera to say the...
It's not avera.
No, to say the truth, like he was this, he was that, he was this.
There's no avera in here at all.
If that person who eulogized him, he knows him from that point of view.
If it's emet, then yes, you can say.
Maybe he had some bad deeds, maybe he did something bad also, but that person who utilized that in that point, he knows him from that point.
If it's true, then it's okay. But you can't say on a person that he was a generous person when he wasn't. If the person was generous and gave a lot of...
Other people know him as not generous.
Oh, okay. No, then in Shamayim, what cares is what's in Shamayim, not what people know. So if you know the person and he was had a heart of gold, and you said he had a heart of gold, and other people don't think that doesn't matter. What matters is in Shamayim what the truth is. So you got to be careful when chas v'shalom, even on other people, even if it's not a hesped. If you know a person that passed away, so you don't say anything. Because even on the met you don't say lashon hara, because it's also can be bad for the neshama. More than that, it can bring dinim on the neshama. So better it's better not to say anything. My grandmother always used to tell me when I was a little boy, you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. That's the easiest way. Yes?
You got rid of all your body?
No. The piercings come out very easily. The tattoos are still there.
Wow, really?
When I became religious and I went to a Rav and I told him, I have tattoos. What do I do? So some Rabbanim, they allow to take it off. Some Rabbanim say don't take it off, because the same way that you damage the body when you put it, you're not allowed to damage the body when you take it off. Each one holds by a different thing. The Rav that I went to told me, don't worry about it now. This is not something that should bother you. And Baruch Hashem, I see that up to now, by leaving them, it only did good than bad. So a lot of times I travel a lot, people see me, I go into a mikveh, I take my clothes off, they see this, suddenly I take my clothes off, they're like... So it does a lot of good. A lot of good. Because I go to many places and I get feedback. People, sometimes I go and deal with teenagers that are going through a hard time, either the teenagers from religious family that become not religious, and I deal with very extreme teenagers. The first thing they want to tell me, take your shirt off. I want to see your tattoo. So they see this cool rabbi, so they can relate with him a little bit better. But once I went somewhere, doesn't matter where, and I went to the mikveh. And there was a lot of people, and there was this old man. And I came out of the mikveh, I started getting dressed, and this old man comes to me outside of the mikveh, and he tells me, I am Rabbi such and such, I'm not going to mention the name, a very big rabbi of a big city, and he tells me, you inspired me. I'm like, me? What? How can I inspire you? So he tells me, I see where you came from, it's obvious, but you come here, you don't care, you take your clothes off, you do what you need to do, you go to the mikveh, you go out, you're not embarrassed, you don't feel shame in front of us, you do what Hashem wants you to do. And he tells me, and I'm looking at you and you inspired me to not be embarrassed by anyone, by anything, even the worst things that I ever did. You were like coming out in the open and you're saying, I was Rasha once, look at me, but I did tshuva. And he said, you inspired me not to be embarrassed by things that I fail in. And not to be embarrassed to hide something bad from another person. So I get a lot of very special feedback from people who see me. Once I went into the mikveh, and this guy walks in front of me, and he looks at me like as if he saw the Satan. He goes back, he comes back, and he's looking at me. And in my mind I'm like, okay, relax. And he tells me, Alon? And I tell him, yes. He's like, Ani lo ma'amin. I cannot believe this. Anyways, so he tells me, remember me? This and this. I told him, I'm very sorry, I don't remember you. So he tells me, you know what? I didn't even remember your face. I remember your tattoo. Anyways, later on, the guy who hosted him for Shabbat told me that he's trying to get this guy for a year to come for Shabbat. Finally he came. He told me for a whole week he's preparing him to come to the mikveh. He didn't want to come, Basof he came. And the guy who hosted him for Shabbat told me, what took me a year to get him to come for Shabbat, you did in a second. He couldn't believe that you became religious. The whole Shabbat he was telling me, you know who this guy? You know this guy? This is the most craziest guy I ever met. I cannot believe this guy did tshuva. If he did tshuva, anybody can do tshuva. So, sometimes you do something, you don't know how many eyes look at you, and what you change. The way you hold yourself and the way you react. You walk in the street, a lot of eyes looking at you, and you don't know who's looking at you and what are thinking at you. I can walk now in the street, dressed like this, have a little spit in my mouth and spit on the floor. 50 people can look and be like, oh, look at this Jew, how he spits on the floor. Look at this rabbi, how he spits on the floor. Look how he's behaving. How you behave, you don't know how many eyes look at you, how many ears listening to what you're saying, and how many people judging you and what they can learn from how you behave. So, how you walk, you can make a big influence. So, Baruch Hashem, these tattoos so far are making a good influence. So for now, they're staying. The Rav that I went to told me, "Don't worry, Techef Mashiach will come. When Mashiach will come, they'll just melt. They'll just fly out of your hand, and the rest of the parts of the bodies."